Hey everybody, Barrett here with Spec of Tech. Welcome to the channel. Today's video is one that I've been looking forward to making. We're going to be talking about the SVS Evolution Pinnacle towers sitting right next to me here. This is the granddaddy, the Big Mac. This is the biggest speaker that they make right now. And it's a speaker that I was a little bit skeptical about when SVS first announced their release. The reason I was skeptical is first of all because of all the drivers on the front. I was a little concerned whether or not it would be able to give you a coherent sound. And the second thing I was a little bit concerned about is the shape. Some have likened it to the shape of a banana, and I can see the resemblance. But I have to admit that after getting them in my room and seeing them for myself, this is an absolutely beautiful speaker, and the sound is something else as well. And we're going to get right into this review talking about the sound, but first of all, let's cover the price. These speakers are $5,000 US dollars a pair, or $8,000 Canadian a pair. If you're interested in more detailed specs, I've dropped links down in the description below that'll take you to the product page. I've also released an overview video, which I'll link in the top right-hand corner of this video if you're interested in checking that out. For those of you that are interested in demos, I'm going to have some demos at the end of this video with some songs as well as some bass demos, because the bass on these speakers, guys, it's something that really stands out. We're going to talk about that in just a second. But first, let's start off with the treble. So when I first heard about these speakers when SVS announced them, I was suspecting that they were going to have a little bit of a bump in the treble region, and I would say that yes, these do have a few peaks or even a couple peaks in the treble region. There is some spots there where I can hear they are a little bit lifted in the treble region, but that said, it's not very excessive. It's not overdone. It's not going to be too harsh on your ears unless you're cranking things up to 11. So if you are a person that likes to turn things up to 11, I wouldn't shy away from these speakers. They could always be EQ'd. But like I said, it's not overdone. It's not excessive, but there is a couple peaks in that treble region, which some might find a little bit harsh if they do like to turn it up. So if you do listen at medium to loud volumes, I do find the treble to be quite nice on these speakers, and because of those peaks in a couple of the treble frequency areas, I do find that the perceived clarity or detail is a little bit boosted in those areas, so they do have a nice crisp treble detail, a little bit of airiness there that, like I said, it isn't excessive, it isn't overdone, so it's quite nice. So if you are looking for a speaker that has above average detail or clarity in the treble region, I would say that these speakers have that. One song that I like to test speakers with is Madonna's Vogue, because I do find the treble to be a little bit hot in that song, so I did put that on with these speakers, and I did have it turned up quite loud. These speakers did handle that song better than average, I would say, and like I said, because it's not overbearing or excessive, I didn't find that song to have any harshness on my ears. It didn't give me any ear fatigue, but again, if you did crank it up to 11, chances are you would get a little bit of that harshness, but I don't listen at those volumes anyway because I do value my hearing. I listen to at medium to loud volumes when I'm testing speakers. I only crank them up once in a while just to see how they can handle volume, and let me tell you, these speakers can handle volume. They will hurt your ears before you're going to hurt the speakers. So overall, when it comes to the treble, it is crisp, it's clean, cymbals have a nice decay to them, they have a nice snap to them, they have that nice sizzle to them, and I do attribute that to that little bump in the treble region. It is something that gives treble a little bit more liveliness. It does make the speaker a little bit more fun to listen to, but you have to be really cautious on how much you boost that treble, and I think they did a really good job here on keeping that tamed down while still giving you a little bit of that sizzle, a little bit of that liveliness in the treble region. Moving down to the two 5¼ inch mid-range drivers, the mid-range on this speaker is something that I would classify as on par for the price point. Now, that isn't a bad thing because these speakers are priced at $5,000 US dollars a pair, or $8,000 Canadian. You would expect a nice detailed mid-range, and that is what you're getting here. The mid-range is quite nice. It's quite detailed. There's some separation there, but I don't find it to be over and above the price point, at least in my opinion. But there is a nice separation there. For those of you that are looking for that, you are going to get what you're paying for with this speaker. When listening to female and male vocals, I do find them to be quite natural, to be quite neutral. They're not on the cool side. They're not on the warm side. They just give you basically what is recorded in the song. I didn't find it to give you any more or any less. So I wouldn't suspect these speakers to have any sort of V-curve to them. I think that the mid-range is quite neutral or quite flat, or at least generally speaking, it'll be quite flat or quite neutral. I listened to a song called Lose Control by Teddy Swims, and it's a song that I choose just because of the male vocals. He's got a kind of a rich singing voice, and these speakers did an excellent job. It was nice and smooth, nice and I wouldn't say warm because they're not warm, but it was rich. It had a nice full sound to it. The best way I can sum up the mid-range is basically you're getting what you pay for. And that's a good thing here because these speakers are priced a little bit higher than what SVS has been priced at in the past. I do find the mid-range to be on par for what you're paying. I do believe they're tonally accurate. They do reproduce instruments quite well. There's a nice separation to things. There is some 3D depth in the mid-range. There's also some height depth in the mid-range. So they do an excellent job in the mid-range. I just wouldn't say that they're punching above their price point in this regard. They are punching above their price point in other regards, but when it comes to the mid-range, like I said, you're getting what you pay for. And I feel the same same about the treble as well. You're basically getting what you pay for. There are a couple areas that I feel you are getting much more than what you pay for with these speakers, and that's with the bass and the finish of these speakers. But first of all, let's talk about the bass, because it's something that really stands out about these speakers. It's something that's truly exceptional and definitely punches above its price point. To be honest, what SVS was able to accomplish with the bass region on these speakers is something truly phenomenal. They are going to please absolutely any bass head. When it comes to bass in this price point, I would have to say that these are the king. Each speaker has 4 8-inch drivers on it, so you have a total of 8 8-inch drivers on these speakers, and let me tell you, you can get them moving and they can get your room moving as well. I played a few bass demos on these speakers through Tidal, and guys, it just puts a smile on your face. If you're a bass head and you're looking for a speaker that has truly phenomenal bass in this price range, I don't think you're going to beat these speakers for the price point. I really don't. That being said, I'm not saying that the bass is neutral. There is definitely a boost in the bass, but again, it's not overdone, it's not excessive, but there is definitely a boost there. So for those of you that are looking for a balanced bass region, these don't come out of the box with a balanced bass region. Of course, you can always EQ that. But for those of you out there that are looking for a speaker that's lively, that's fun to listen to, that just gives you that room shaking, thumping bass, these are absolutely those speakers. Our home is a 4-level split home, and my listening space is open up to 2 other levels at the back of the room. So I really struggle with getting room-filling bass, especially with speakers, but these had no problem. With these 8-inch drivers, my room was shaking, there was things vibrating, and it's not only about the SPL or the output of these speakers. Yes, there's plenty of output in the bass region that can shake your room, vibrate things, you can feel it in your chest, you can feel it in your chair, but it's also good, clean, hard-hitting bass. Because you have 8-inch drivers, it's just very clean. There's not a whole lot of excursion unless you're cranking things up to past 11. I was actually struggling to get them moving enough to get some nice footage. I had to turn things up a lot more than I thought I would to have those drivers moving enough to get some decent footage to show you guys visually, I guess, how the drivers can get moving for bass. And I struggled because they have so many drivers. They're going to remain clean because they're not using their full excursion all the time to produce that bass. They're using a lot less of it. So you're just going to get good, clean, tight musical bass that if you want to turn things up and have your room shaking, you can absolutely do that as well. If you want to EQ it down a little bit to get a more balanced bass presentation, you can do that, and it's still going to be clean, tight, and give you fantastic bass output. So these speakers will perform very well for any bass heavy music. If you like kick drums, it's going to be full, it's going to be thick, it's going to be rich, it's going to hit you in the chest, but it's not going to be overbearing or boomy. Keep in mind that these do have 2 bass drivers and 2 ports on the back of the speaker, so if you have it too close to the wall, then yes, you would run the risk of getting some boomy bass, but that's just a placement issue, that's not a speaker issue. And yes, there is a slight bump in the bass, so it might exaggerate that just a little bit. But for bass heads, you are going to love these speakers. I'm a bit of a bass head myself. When it comes to my preference for listening to music, I do like having the bass boosted just a little bit. I don't like it to be too boomy or too much, but these speakers kind of do it just right. They give you a little bit more in that bass region, enough to just hit you in the chair, hit you in the chest, fill the room. For songs like Billie Eilish's NDA that has a nice sharp punch to it, these 8-inch drivers do a fantastic job, guys. Again, if you turn things up, you are going to feel it in your chest, you're going to feel it in your chair, you're going to feel it in the room. And then for songs like Kill Shot that has kind of a lower bass, I'm not sure exactly what it extends to, but I'd say it's in the 20 hertz somewhere, or 20-something hertz. Again, my room is shaking. These speakers have no problem producing it. Even at loud volumes, I didn't hear any distortion. I didn't hear the drivers to be struggling. Like I said, you got 8-inch drivers producing that sound, so there's a lot of distribution going on there. If you only had 2 8-inch drivers, I would suspect that you would start to hear some distortion. You'd start to hear the drivers working a little bit harder than they need to be. But with 8-inch drivers, or 4 per speaker, you don't really have that. You have a lot of good, clean bass, though, that shakes your room. So if bass is your thing, I can't stress this enough, these speakers do a fantastic job with bass. So I don't know what else I can say about the bass. As you can see, I'm pretty enthusiastic about it. Like I said, I'm a bass head, so when I have a speaker like this in this price point, I feel like they're offering you a fantastic value, specifically in the bass region. Now, normally you're gonna have to spend a lot more money to get what's considered a full range speaker, which is generally speaking 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. Now, these aren't exactly rated down to 20 hertz. I think they're rated down to 24 hertz plus or minus 3 dB. But guys, in room, you're absolutely getting 20 hertz. I played a 20 hertz sine wave, and these woofers were going, my room was going. You could definitely feel the bass, so it does do 20 hertz with authority. So I would consider these to basically be a full range speaker. And at this price point, that is a good value. I've already mentioned that I was a little skeptical of all the drivers on the front being able to provide a coherent sound. So essentially that's going to affect your sound staging and imaging, and that is an area that these speakers actually performed very well on yet again. When I listened to the Eagles' Hotel California live rendition, there's a part after the first guitar solo that's early on in the song where you hear the crowd cheering and clapping, and I hear that kind of on the top left-hand ceiling of my room. This is a song that I like to choose to test the soundstage and imaging because I've used it on a lot of speakers, and I'd say that these speakers performed kind of on the top echelon of those speakers that I've tested this song with. The crowd clapping and cheering was coming from basically right above me to the left, very close to where even my Legacy Aries soundstaged. That song was coming from the top left of my ceiling. Now I would say, of course, that the Legacy Aries did do it better. They're a far more expensive speaker, but these are getting close, so I was really impressed with that part of that song. Another song that I choose to test soundstage and imaging is Madonna's Vogue. At the beginning of the song, she says, "What are you looking at?" and it pans from the left far side of your room to the right side of your room. And again, these speakers performed with some of the best speakers that I've heard in my room for soundstage and imaging. It went from my left wall to my right wall, well beyond the edges of the speakers. So again, they performed very well with soundstage and imaging in that song. Another song that I like to use is Thriller by Michael Jackson. At the beginning of the song, you hear the door open and then he kind of walks across the front of the stage, actually from the right to the left, my right to my left. And again, performed very well. The door was very precise as where it was. His footsteps were very precise as to where they were until he gets to the door. So when it comes to soundstage and imaging, I guess as long as they're placed properly and you take a little bit of time to place them and focus on getting that nice center image, I would recommend pulling these a little bit away from the wall though. I have mine about 2 feet from the back wall and probably about 18 inches from this corner sidewall. This speaker is a little bit further from the sidewall, but it was also 2 feet from the back wall. And that seemed to perform very well for me. It gave a nice soundstage across the front. The soundstage is a little bit higher, so I would say that it has some height to it. It kind of gives you the illusion that you are looking up at a stage and they're performing. So when I listened to Nirvana's live, The Man Who Sold the World, again, you could hear where every instrument was on the stage, so it's like they're performing for you, and then Kurt Cobain's voice was right in the center, and you have the drums kind of panning from like there's an actual drum set there. The sound is going to come from different spots, and it absolutely does from these speakers in my room. So when it comes to the soundstage and imaging, again, I was really impressed. I'd say you're probably getting a little bit more than what you pay for here. They're punching a little bit above their price point when it comes to soundstage and imaging. I didn't have any concerns about the coherent sound after listening to the speakers, so they did really well here and they performed very well. We're going to cover how these perform for home theater in just a second, but for those of you that are looking for these speakers for music, there's two things that I think that you should keep in mind, and that's the boost in the treble and the boost in the bass. Again, it's not overbearing, it's not excessive in the treble region. The bass, I'd say, is boosted a little bit more than the treble peaks that I was talking about. Again, you can EQ that if you want. If you want a speaker that's going to be capable and have a lot of headroom, these speakers have a lot of drivers, so there's a lot of headroom here. You could always EQ that flat if you wanted to. But if you're a person that is looking for a speaker that has really good, exceptional bass in this price range, that is definitely this speaker right here. If that is something that you're looking for, that's something that you want, these should be at the top of your list in my opinion. Now there is other speakers that have really good bass, like the Paradigm 120H. It has a powered bass region with 3 8-inch drivers per speaker, but they are more money, and it is a powered speaker. So you have 1,000 watts per speaker powering those 3 8-inch drivers. Now these you are going to have to give a little bit more power. They do rate them from 20 watts to I believe 300 watts. I was powering them with my Legacy IB3 amplifier, which puts out 600 watts per channel into 8 ohms. Now again, I wasn't cranking things up to the max to even use all that 600 watts anyway, but I would say that they need a little bit more power to get them to their full potential. For those of you out there that may be looking at these for home theater or a mix of home theater and music, pretty much everything that I just said is going to translate to home theater very well. They do have a lot of headroom, they can get very loud and still remain very clean, and you may not even need to get a subwoofer because of the 4 8-inch drivers per speaker. You have quite a bit of bass here, so if you're not a big bass head or you don't want room shaking, rattling bass, you might be able to get by with just having these speakers with no subwoofers, even for home theater. But if you like a lot of headroom, of course you can incorporate subwoofers and cross these speakers over to the subwoofers. They're going to be able to remain cleaner, louder, because it's the bass region usually that is the first to distort on speakers, because especially with movies, they have some ultra low frequencies there that is difficult for drivers to reproduce. Now these do an excellent job. I don't think you're going to get much authority below 20 hertz. You will get a little bit, but you're not going to get much authority below 20 hertz. That's where a subwoofer is really going to shine, or at least a capable subwoofer. So for those of you that want, a home theater, earth-shattering, chair-shaking bass, these will get you there down to about 20 hertz, but below that, you're not going to get that. So I would recommend a subwoofer in that case. But for those of you that aren't crazy bass heads, that don't want that earth-shattering, chair-shaking bass, you could absolutely get away with not using subwoofers with these, because essentially they do have 4 8-inch subwoofers per speaker. And if you are using them for home theater, then there's a good chance you're using room calibration software, so that's going to smooth out those peaks in the treble region, as well as smooth out the bass if that's what you want your room calibration to do. Of course, you can always boost that if you wish, but those peaks aren't going to be a concern for you if you are running them in home theater because of room calibration software. So in conclusion about their sound, I think that SVS produced a really good all-arounder speaker here. It's going to make most people happy, especially those that really like bass, and also those that like a little bit of perceived detail clarity in the treble region because of those bumps that I talked about. Now, for those of you that are looking for the absolute most neutral speaker and you must have a flat response, these aren't that. So would I recommend them to you? Only if you're good with EQ and you want a speaker that has a lot of headroom, then yeah, you could still use these speakers. You could EQ those flat, and I think you'd still be very happy with these speakers. But I think the people that would be the happiest with these speakers are those that like a little bit of a livelier sound. They don't necessarily prioritize neutral, even though I do find these speakers to be quite neutral in the mid-range. They're not exactly neutral in the treble and the bass region. But if you like a lively sound, a fun speaker to listen to, especially if you listen to a lot of bassy music, I would 100% recommend that you put these speakers on your list. I myself would be interested in keeping these speakers if I hadn't already bought different speakers. I'm not saying I'm kicking myself for buying those speakers, but at the same time, I wish maybe that I had a chance to compare the two before purchasing these other speakers, but I've already bought those. But these speakers are that good for me that I would consider putting them in my own home theater. But that's how I feel about their sound. Now I do want to cover the build quality and the aesthetic as well, because it's something that is a little bit of a mixed bag here, but I do think overall these are a very nice looking speaker. First of all is the shape of the cabinet. Some have likened it to a banana, which I see the resemblance, but at the same time, I am a fan of a speaker that's going to give you something different. Now, I know there is other speakers out there that do this type of time alignment cabinetry, like Focal, but it's still unique enough to where it's not just your typical rectangular box speaker. So I do like a little bit of uniqueness, and these do offer a little bit of uniqueness in that sense. They also offer a little bit of uniqueness in the fact that they have all these drivers along the front, which some may like, some may not like. I like it. I think it, again, offers a little bit of uniqueness where it's something different. It's something that is aesthetically unique compared to other speakers that just kind of have the same driver kind of configuration as every other speaker on the market. So I do like the fact that you kind of got 2 big drivers, 2 smaller drivers, and the tweeter in the middle. To me, it's kind of aesthetically unique. And then when it comes to the gloss black finish itself, it's something that really stood out to me when I unboxed these speakers. It's got a nice thick premium look to it. It has some depth to it. The finish itself, I guess there's no better way to put it than it looks premium. And it's something that's a little bit harder to find in this price point with the slightly rounded edges and the cabinetry itself. Most speakers are going to go for just sharp-edged rectangular box in this price range. So I like that SVS is kind of offering a little bit more for the price point when it comes to the cabinetry and the finish itself. There is one area that I wish that they would up the ante just a little bit, and that's their terminal plate. It is a little bit of a nitpick, yes, I get that. But at the same time, there is speakers in this price point that are offering much nicer looking terminal plates on the back of the speakers, usually like a brushed aluminum or some sort of metal. I just wish that SVS would kind of follow that suit. It's one thing that when I look at the speaker that kind of cheapens it a little bit versus the rest of the speaker. So that's why I feel that they should just, spend the whatever it would be, an extra $1 to put a brushed aluminum plate back there versus a plastic plate. But all in all, when it comes to the build quality, I feel like you're getting a little bit more than what you pay for here, except for that plastic terminal plate. The drivers look really well built. The cabinet looks really well built. The finish on it is exceptional. You're getting a really nice looking speaker, basically. You're getting a premium looking speaker. And I feel like a lot of speaker companies wouldn't have gone the extra mile to round the edges and make it look nice with the premium finish. They would just go for, your basic sharp, squared, rectangular box in this price point. So it's nice to see that they didn't do that. Okay, so we're going to get to the bass demos and the song demos in just a second. But to wrap up the speaker as a whole, I truly like this speaker, and I genuinely considered buying it for my home theater and having an SVS home theater. For those of you that follow the channel, you know that I sold my legacy speakers recently, and I was looking for a replacement. I wouldn't say unfortunately, but unfortunately, I had already purchased other speakers for my home theater, so make sure you stay tuned for what speaker I chose and the unboxings and videos about those speakers. But if I hadn't have done that, I would have strongly considered and probably would have purchased these speakers for my home theater, knowing full well that they aren't exactly neutral, because that is something I was looking for. Again, you can always EQ that. So I'm not too concerned about that entirely. Yes, I was looking for a neutral speaker, but it's not the beginning and end all. So that's how much I truly do like these speakers. I was considering using my own money, paying for them for myself, for my home theater, because I truly and genuinely really do like these speakers, and especially because I'm a bass head, they just kind of blew me away, especially in that bass region, and that in and of itself is really hard to find in this price point. So it's something that just really caught my attention about these speakers, and then looking at them every day, they're really easy to look at. For me, they're an aesthetically pleasing speaker. So there you have it. I really considered buying them for myself. That is what I think of these speakers. They're that good to me, even though there's a lot of other options out there in this price point. When it comes to what these speakers do really well, they really sold me on what they are and what they are able to provide. All right, so let's get into the demos. Here's some bass demos and some song demos, but keep in mind again that YouTube is going to compress this, so that's going to affect the sound. My recording equipment, my room, as well as the device that you're listening on is going to greatly affect the sound. So it's not an accurate depiction of what I was hearing in my room, but it's the best I can do over YouTube, and I would suggest using a good pair of headphones for listening to these demos, because that's going to give you the best experience. Even though it's still not a perfect experience, it's going to give you a better one. The equipment that I was using for these demos is my binaural microphone to record them, so you should get some of the stereo imaging and sound staging going on there. I was using the Eversolo A6 Master Edition streamer, as well as the Eversolo Z8 DAC to my Legacy Audio IV3 amplifier powering these speakers. There's zero room calibration and zero EQing going on here, and there's absolutely no subwoofers being used. It's just the speakers themselves, so you're going to see how well these do with bass. I hope you guys did enjoy those demos, and as you can see, the bass is truly exceptional on these speakers. There was no subwoofers going and my room is shaking. I'm sure the microphone was clipping, so I'm not sure how well the bass came over the microphone, but I hope it did come over very well so that you guys can experience a little bit of what I was experiencing in my room. For those of you that may be interested in checking these speakers out further, I've dropped links down in the description below. Please do consider using my links if you're thinking of purchasing. It doesn't cost you guys anything extra, it's the same price, but I do get a small commission to help out the channel, and it really does help out the channel because I reinvest most of what I make from YouTube and the affiliate links back into equipment that I can share and review for all of you guys, so it truly does help out the channel. Make sure that you guys stay tuned for the speakers that I purchased to replace my legacy audio speakers. Those videos will be coming shortly. Remember to enjoy your systems. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.